Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thanks for clicking on this video. My name is Ashley. I have a daughter. She's 9 months old. Her name is Elodie. My husband and I have been together for 8 years. He's in the military, and I do a lot of mommy and lifestyle videos. So if that's something you're interested, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And if you want to see our trying to conceive journey, then just keep watching. Okay, so just a little backstory on when we started, how long it took, just so you guys know I'm not pregnant. We're not trying to conceive now. This is my story about how we conceived our daughter Elodie, who's 9 months old. So not even quite a year after we got married, we decided we weren't going to try, but we weren't going to not try. So I got off birth control, and we kind of just, if it happens, it happens. About 6 months in, nothing happened. So I started thinking, what's wrong? Something has to be wrong. It should happen by now. So I started downloading the apps like Ovia, and I forget what the other one is called. But Ovia was the main one that I used. I always had irregular periods, so it was hard to track it to begin with because I had periods that would last for 3 weeks and then I wouldn't get them for like 5 months. So very irregular. That's why I was on birth control in the first place. So a little backstory on me. When I first started getting my period, I didn't get my period until I was 16, and it was really bad. Like I said, I'd have it for 3 weeks and then not for 5 months. And when I had it for 3 weeks, it was very heavy and like uncomfortable. So my doctor put me on birth control to regulate my periods. Now, back then, I don't know if they knew, and I still feel like they don't tell you this today, but when you're on birth control for an extended period of time, it can like stop your ovulation, not forever, but like it could take a long time for you to get back into like the groove of things. I had no idea, or I never would have did it. So now I choose to not do any hormonal birth control because of my experience that I'm going to tell you about. So we got off birth control. I was tracking my periods with the Ovia app, thinking I was doing a good job. Another couple months went by and nothing. So my husband actually purchased me these ovulation strips because we bought some to begin with, like the expensive ones from the store, and they're expensive. So it ended up getting super expensive, and I really wanted to take it every day so that I could see when I was ovulating, because the app was trying to do a good job, but it wasn't really, because my periods were so off the wall, it couldn't really tell me if I was ovulating and when it was happening. So I just thought if I took an ovulation test every day, whenever I got a positive one, I would know. So these were just the better option. I'll link them below. They also have the pregnancy tests too. And I think we got them in like a 100-pack, and I don't know if Amazon sells them in a 100-pack anymore, but we paid like $18 a piece and got like 100 of each. So whenever we got those in the mail, that's when I started testing every single day. So I would take an ovulation test every day. I had this little cup that I designated my pee cup. I know that's gross. And I would just like wash it out with soap and water and put it under the sink. And every morning it was a routine, and I would just take the ovulation test. And I never got a positive one. At this point, my husband is in the military. He had just joined, so he left for basic training. So that kind of put a halt on things about the baby, or trying to have a baby. But I continued to take an ovulation test every day because I had never gotten a positive one. So in my mind, I knew that I wasn't ovulating. So I just kept taking them so that if I ended up getting a positive, I would at least know, hey, I'm ovulating. So when my husband left for basic training, it kind of like put a halt. He was gone for 9 weeks. I think it was 9 weeks. So whenever he came home, we had like 3 weeks together for Christmas. Obviously we were trying then, but we didn't know when to try or when was a better time, because we had no idea if I was even ovulating. So he left after Christmas. I wasn't pregnant, so I decided it was time for me to talk to my doctor. So I made a doctor's appointment with my usual OB, and I told her I didn't think I was ovulating. I was taking these ovulation tests, and she's like, oh no, you're probably fine, blah, 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 blah. She's like, just give it more time. So this had been 13 months of trying, which 6 of those months we weren't trying, but we weren't not trying. So collectively, there was 14 months of I wasn't on birth control and we were doing it and nothing was happening. So to me, giving it more time, I already knew. And I know a lot of people go in there after a couple months of trying saying, I've been trying forever. And that's probably why they were like, give it more time, because I do know that some people don't have the struggle. And that's awesome. I'm like completely so jealous of you that it's easy for you to get pregnant. And I feel like a lot of the doctors just let it go because they think people are being dramatic. To be honest, I really felt like I was wrote off. So I made an appointment at another doctor. And she gave me a vaginal exam, and then she actually took me in her office. It wasn't an OB, it was a physician's assistant, I think. I'm not sure. And she actually prescribed me a book. Now, let me just say, if you are trying to conceive, you know the struggle, and it's really difficult to even talk about. So a lot of my family, actually most of my family, besides my mom, and all of my friends except for like 2 of them, like didn't know that we were trying, like how hard we were trying. So for you to go to a doctor and then to prescribe you a book, I literally left there like furious. I cried in my car. I just felt like nobody was listening to me. Nobody cared. And it wasn't in the cards for me to carry a child. So to go through emotions of how horrible it is, and if you are going through it, my heart goes out to you, because I know there are people that try and it never happens for them. And I got lucky and it did happen for me. But I know the struggle and it really sucks. So I ended up going back to my original doctor, who I usually see. I took a week because I needed to just cool off. I was so pissed that she prescribed me a book. I can't even tell you how mad I was. So went back to my original doctor and I was like, I need to be tested to see if I'm ovulating, because I know I'm not. So I need to stop playing around. We need to figure out what the next step is, because I've been trying for, at that point, 14 months. And if I'm not ovulating, we need to figure out what the next step is. Like, I'm done wasting time. I know that like it'll happen when it's supposed to happen, but I knew that I couldn't just sit around and it would just end up happening, because for me, I was taking an ovulation test every day, so if it was gonna happen, it would have happened. So I needed to be proactive. So even though I knew I was not ovulating, she tested me. Getting that call, even though I knew I wasn't. I remember sitting at work at that time. I worked in an office and we had like this little room where we answered phones and took appointments. And I was sitting next to a girl I work with, and we were both working, doing our scheduling appointments, and I got the call from my phone. So I took it, and it was my doctor, and she told me I wasn't ovulating. And even though I knew I wasn't, hearing the words from your doctor, it's hard. And I broke down and I cried really hard. And the girl I worked with, Audrey, literally gave me like the biggest hug, and it was just hard. It really was hard. I'm sorry, I'm going through those emotions again. It's hard when you think that your whole life, you think it's so easy to get pregnant. The doctors tell you, like, use birth control, use condoms. Like, you can get pregnant so easy. Like, they literally teach you in school that if you have sex one time, you're gonna get pregnant, and that's how it is for some people. But your whole life, you dream of like getting married and having a family, and you think it's so easy, and it's not. When it comes your time and it's not, it's literally heartbreaking. I can't even, if you are going through it, you know what I mean, but it's heartbreaking and it's really tough. Especially when everyone around you is getting pregnant and they weren't even trying. And that's the hardest part, is I don't think people understand when they use those words. We weren't even trying. That you don't know what someone else is going through. And I'm not mad at you for saying that. I'm not upset. It's not your fault, because I'm not coming out telling you, hey, I'm having these fertility issues. But I don't think they understand how it makes you feel whenever it's not happening for you and all you're doing is trying. You're trying everything. So it's really hard. And it's also really hard when you have people, I don't think people understand whenever you get married and they're always like, oh, so when are the babies coming? That's something I never ask anymore. I used to always ask people that when they got married. And ever since I went through this, I don't ask people. That's just not something that's any of my business. And I know how it feels to be on the other end of that question, knowing you're trying, but I don't want to make someone else feel awkward or uncomfortable. So I just say, I used to just be like, oh, whenever it happens. And the only people that really knew were my really close friends and my mom. It was really difficult. And at the end, I was really ready to give up and just didn't think it was in the cards for us. And we discussed that if it wouldn't happen, we would adopt for sure. But adoption is very, very expensive. So we wouldn't have been able to afford it at the time. We would have definitely had to save up because it's very expensive. But if you're going through that, I totally know what you're going through. Okay, now on to how we finally made a baby. So I was determined to get pregnant. And I watched, whenever my doctor told me I wasn't ovulating, she wanted Zach to go get his sperm tested. But at that point, I just knew it was me. I 100% knew it was me because I wasn't ovulating. But so she suggested Clomid, and I watched a bunch of videos, did a bunch of research, and decided that was not something that I wanted to do like as a first try. I wanted to try to find something more natural just because I saw like so many people's side effects with that. It kind of scared me and I just didn't want to do that. So I searched so many YouTube videos and I came across someone talking about this vitamin called Vitex. And I'll insert a picture. So I ordered Vitex off of Amazon and I started taking it religiously every day. And it said it could take 60 to 90 days. And Vitex, I am not a doctor. I'm not any kind of certified anything. So don't take my medical advice. I'm just telling you, I did my own research and decided this was a good plan for me. So what Vitex, the gist of it, it like helps your feminine reproductive organs. So since I wasn't having a regular period and I wasn't ovulating, it just gets everything like healthy is like what I saw. And I watched a bunch of YouTube videos about people that they started ovulating after they took it for about 60 to 90 days. So I said it's a vitamin that's going to help my insides anyways, so I might as well try it, and if I ovulate, great. If I don't, it's not hurting anything. Probably like almost 90 days into taking it, I had my first ever positive ovulation test. I literally freaked out like I was pregnant. I was just like, because I had never had a positive ovulation test, I was freaking out. I was so excited. I took like 12 of them and compared them to all my other ones. And It's hard with ovulation tests because there's always 2 lines, but you know when you get a positive one, especially when all you've gotten is negative. So that positive one I was so excited. So, and what sucked is I had just left. It was like a week after I was with Zach. Zach was still away at this time. So, I come back a week later and I get a positive, and I was like, oh, of course I would. Just like that, it was so crazy, because then like a week later or 2 weeks, whatever it was, I got my first like normal period. It was a couple days long and it went away. I didn't have cramps. It didn't last 3 weeks. And then a couple weeks later, I got my second positive ovulation test. I was so ecstatic that it was a cycle. Like, I was tracking it on my device, and whenever I did my period in that first ovulation test, it told me, my app told me when I would be ovulating again, and sure enough, this thing came out positive, and I was so excited because that next day I was driving Zach's truck down to him to visit him. So I was like, I called him as soon as it was positive, and I was like, I got a positive ovulation test. As soon as I see you tomorrow, we are making a baby. So I go down, I visit him, we make a baby, not knowing at that time, but I come home, and then he was coming up the next week, a week and a half, I think the next week. And he was coming up for Memorial Day. And I was 5 days DPO whenever he came up. So I had already started like taking pregnancy tests every day. So I just was in the habit of taking it every day. They were negative. But I knew it was still really early, but I was so used to always getting a negative pregnancy test every month, always. So it just kind of became a routine to take a pregnancy test and it be negative, just like it was with the ovulation tests. So he came home and I was 5 DPO, and I think when he left, I was 9. But we went out one night when he was home, and I had taken a test and it was negative. And we were drinking, and the next morning I woke up and took another pregnancy test just because it's a habit. And I just remember sitting it on the sink, and then I went back to bed, and we just like snuggled for a little bit in the morning. And I had always had these plans of how I was going to tell him, and maybe with baby number 2, I'll go all out. But for him being home, it's just crazy that he was home when I found out. So I went back into the bathroom a little later to brush my teeth, and I remember just glancing down and then doing like a triple take, and I literally was like, just was screaming. I was like, oh my gosh, 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 oh my gosh. Literally, that was me. Zach comes running in. He's like, what is wrong? He later told me he thought that like there was a spider or I cut myself or something. And I remember him looking at it and saying, is that real? Are you sure that means you're pregnant? And I'm like, yes, babe. And after taking a pregnancy test all the time and knowing that we're negative, I knew that that line meant I was pregnant. It was the best feeling ever. And like thinking back on it, I just remember, oh, it was amazing. That is my story on how we conceived our daughter and our struggle. And I hope if you're going through this, you know that you are not alone. And I hope this helped you. And if you're watching this and you are not going through the trying to conceive troubles, or you've never had that, I hope maybe this helped you put perspective on people that are struggling. And my purpose of putting videos out there like this is to let people know that you're not alone, and just if I could help somebody feel like better, or maybe you haven't heard of Vitex and you want to try it, and I'm no way a doctor, but if it helps one person emotionally or physically with getting pregnant, then I'm just happy that I did that. So thank you all for watching. If you liked this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure you subscribe. See you guys.